Okay. Alright, so I got this up right over here. Now I just need to double check. Do we have it live over here? Yes, we do. Okay, perfect. So now I think it is time that we shall begin another great episode. Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And today we are actually going to have a lot more of a very special episode because I am not going to be alone. I actually have a very special guest star right over here, and this guy has been a good buddy of mine for many years now. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from vaulting, Morgan Ledger. Morgan, what is up, my man?
I cannot tell you. There's so much that's been going on. We got to do more stuff together. That's all I'm just gonna say. But it's a pleasure to be back as always.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's been so long, and it's honestly been very long since we've done something like this, like in a podcast in general.
I will say, well, more than just a podcast. I will say this: I've always made a bet with myself that if I ever do something with you again, it's gonna be either three things: one, something Muppet related; two, something involving John Cordy's Twice Upon a Time; or three, anything involving the Dark Crystal.
Ah, that is true, man. That is true. And I mean, like, who knows? Because the thing is that there is that Netflix series that's going to be coming up, so.
Yeah, the prequel series, and it's going to be all puppets and stuff, so I'm a little curious about how they're going to do that.
I am curious too, but I am a bit excited as well. By the way, I noticed that there are some people that are pretty excited about the fact that you have your Slimer plushie in your closet.
I can't believe they actually recognize that thing. There's a whole lot more up here, too, but there's the Andre seal, I think I have my Rocket Raccoon, and, oh, actually I can kind of share this. Uh,
Yeah,
my
hold on, let
sister
me.
went to an anime convention, and she got me this little piece of art right here. I don't know if you can see it that well.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Hmm. Gotta find the time to hang it at some point, but it's really impressive.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Is that like legit hand painted and stuff?
Oh, legitimately hand painted. The minute she saw it, she's like, I think my brother will like this. And sure enough, I was very ecstatic to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So with all that said and done, I would like to ask to the chat wall, and I would like to ask you, Morgan, are we all ready for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? So, Morgan, are you ready?
I am ready. I have a nice cup of joe right here. My lucky t-shirt is all on set. I got nothing else to say except bring it.
All right, and I see that yep, a lot of people are already getting a liking of you, and everybody is ready, so that is perfect. So let's go ahead and begin with our first story right over here, in which it seems to be pretty interesting because this is actually a subject that a lot of people has been talking about, and this seems to be a subject that it should have been announced like a decade ago because some of these projects that have been announced, like, it feels like something we should have already gotten, especially with the big boom of, like, movies based on cartoons that are like a live action animation hybrid.
Hmm.
Oh boy, yeah. And Morgan, would you be excited for this project in particular that I'm talking about?
Pray do tell. I'm trying to refresh my memory at the moment.
All right, well, to
Because
give
there's many projects, to say the least, so...
yeah, that is true. But the one that I am talking about is going to be at Warner Brothers, where they are going to be developing a Tom and Jerry movie. Now, the report right over here from Variety, it actually stated that they brought on board a couple of people for their animation lineup. They actually do have Tim Story, the director of the Ride Along movies, to go and direct a live-action animation hybrid of Tom and Jerry, and that they also brought on board Chris Columbus in order to be a creative producer on the animated Scooby-Doo movie. Now, just to clarify a little bit more on what they want to do for this Tom and Jerry movie, it actually stated in my source here in Variety, the plan is to shoot in the real world with animated versions of the familiar cat and mouse duo. Sources also say that since Tom and Jerry didn't speak and relied on physical comedy to draw laughs, this version will stick to that style and not cast any actors to voice the duo. So this is not going to be like the Tom and Jerry movie
Yeah.
of the 90s. That decision should also help add to the international appeal of the film. But on top of that, this article would also go on to describe a lot more big plans that Warner Brother has for their animation lineup. Like, they really want to go and try to take animation a lot more seriously in their future, and even bringing up a lot of their upcoming slate in terms of the animated films that they want to do, especially with their old properties. They've talked about with the Looney Tunes, with the upcoming Space Jam reboot with LeBron James. They also discuss about the Wile E. Coyote versus Acme movie. And
I'm a little curious about that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And on top of that, a lot more Hanna-Barbera properties. Like, Scooby-Doo is going to be the first among those Hanna-Barbera movies that Warner Animation Group wants to make. But on top of that, it also mentions that they're going to do a lot more, which includes a Jetsons movie with Matt Lieberman and Sausage Party director Conrad Vernon, and also that they are in development on movies such as The Flintstones and Wacky Races. And what's interesting to note is that right at the end of this article, it also states that the studio clearly sees this division as one of its top priorities going forward in terms of building its business for years to come. As for all the DC-related properties and the possibility of giving them the animated treatment, one studio insider says, don't count anything out. So, with all this said, Morgan, what do you think about this news in particular? And also, what do you think specifically about this Tom and Jerry movie?
Ooh, whole lot to dissect here. Well, first off, I think obviously we should talk about Tom and Jerry here. They did a movie in the 90s, and we know why it didn't do well. Because there was too much conflict. I mean, not just the whole talking thing, but there's way too much conflict in that film. They just really deviate from what made the whole concept work. Now, a long time ago, they did say they're going to do a live-action version that was all CGI, live-action hybrid. Sorry, lights a little. There we go. Because I did read up a while back they were going to do a version somewhat like this, where it was like live-action animation, but they weren't going to have them talk. Which I was like, okay, I'm kind of on board with that. But that was like back when I was in high school or middle school. So to hear them do this project again and have someone at the helm is a little more interesting, because I kind of want to see what they can do with this. Tim Story, of course, he also did the two Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans as the Human Torch and Michael Chiklis as the Thing. I know he did one of the Barbershop movies, if I recall correctly, so I'm a little curious to see what his take could be. As long as they stick close to the premise, that's fine. If it's just cat and mouse chase each other and they realize, oh yeah, we got to work together and stuff, that's okay, because I want to see more silent kind of stuff, like really just non-talkative, verbal communication kind of stuff, because that's sort of becoming a dying art. People who say, oh, silent movies, they're dead. No. They still exist. I mean, look at Shape of Water, for example. There's a lot of sign language going on. War for the Planet of the Apes, for example.
Or another great example would have to be the Shaun of the Sheep movie. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that one, there's like no dialogue in there at all.
I've seen the cartoon, so I'm actually very impressed with that. Chris Columbus doing a Scooby-Doo movie, I'm okay with that. He did. Those who say, oh, he's a paid-by-numbers director, he did Rent and Harry Potter was... Well, yeah, he also penned Gremlins. And when you look at the original script for Gremlins, it's a hell of a lot darker. Like, there's stuff like Billy's mother's head falling down the stairs when he comes home. There's a bit where they enter into a McDonald's where all of the patrons are eaten, but the hamburgers are still there. Like, that's how dark of a movie that was going to be. And this is Chris Columbus, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, did Chris Columbus have anything to do with the live-action remakes of Scooby-Doo, like the 2002 movie and Monsters Unleashed?
No, he didn't. That was those are written by James Gunn.
True.
And those are going to be PG-13, and the studio said, no, you cannot do that. You got to make this lighter for the kiddies.
Yeah.
Film and Dadney shipping. Nope, can't have that in there. In the deleted scenes, there's hints, by the by.
Oh wow, really?
Oh yeah. There was a bit where I think like Daphne's on the piano trying to do this little saucy number because she's jealous of Velma or something like that. No, it's the other way around. My mistake. But no, I'm actually a little curious because Chris Columbus, he can do dark stuff. He can really do dark stuff. I think when Home Alone happened, that's when he realized, okay, I can be this kind of guy, the family-friendly kind of person. Because, yeah, John Hughes wrote the script and stuff. But I really want to see him do something really brash and really dark again. And the closest to that is the two Harry Potter movies. Because as PG as those were, they still had some pretty iffy things in there.
Have a bit of dark moments, yeah.
And he's also trying to get another Gremlins movie off the ground, which I'm a little curious to see where that can go. I've heard some things from the original Shoot, I gotta do a little cheating here. The actor who played Billy, which is Zach Galligan. I wasn't too off. I almost said Zach Galifianakis. Don't know why. They're both named Zach. Go figure.
I mean,
I'm a
Zach
little.
Galifianakis in a Gremlins movie, it doesn't seem that far off nowadays.
No, no, it doesn't. Here, little buddy, have a little fish stick. Oh, it's after midnight, crud.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see him running around like it's the baby from The Hangover. I'm a little curious to see where that could go, especially considering how he can do dark comedy, and I want to see something like that. Just really go for something like that. And there was stuff like that in the late '90s too, like Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. If it goes in that
Mhm.
direction, okay, fine. That's fine. But if it's anything like the Raja Ghul movies, it's like, you had your one shot, but I guess gotta wait another
Yeah.
20 years or so. The Wile E. Coyote versus Acme movie, and it's the fact it's being done by Chris McKay, who did Lego Batman, which I actually kind of liked, believe it or not. Did not like Lego Movie, but I did like Lego Batman, oddly enough. There were just too many references. It was way too distracting.
Uh,
But no, with Wile E. Coyote versus Acme, it makes sense because there's so many shorts of them using the product. So him versus product, it's like Scott Pilgrim versus the world in a sense.
yeah, I guess that is true. And I would
If
say, but I
if
just want to put in. Oh, go on, actually.
No, yeah, I might as well end this off on a little joke here. If the movie is just him filing a complaint to the Acme Corporation, just imagine that. And, well, it's
God.
called versus Acme, so maybe it's a court case or something. I don't know.
That's what a lot of people are theorizing, so that could be a
Ooh.
strong possibility. But
And again, I love those cartoons because they were quick, they were silent. The visual expressions that Chuck Jones did with Coyote were so great. So
mhm.
if it's going in that direction, I would love to see it go that route.
Yeah, and if I may put a little bit of my piece, like with the Tom and
Sure.
Jerry movie, it does sound very interesting with the direction that they want to go. Like one thing that so far that they are doing right is the fact that they're not going to make Tom and Jerry talk, which okay, that seems like a bit of a bonus, and I could see the direction of like making it more of a silent movie and stuff like that to have the main characters just do their shtick.
Yeah.
It is a bit iffy. I mean, like, you don't really have much in terms of plot of what you can do, but maybe there could be a way that they could pull it off. And especially, like, when you do think of the Tom and Jerry cartoons, yeah, it is usually, like, the whole cat versus mouse shtick. But I'm sure there are some cartoons where they have actually created some actual plots with some of these cartoons. So
Plots.
some of them, but I'm sure that they could actually find some legitimate ideas with Tom and Jerry. So that could actually be pretty intriguing. And it could be, and it could be the same thing with Wile E. Coyote versus Acme, that maybe they could also make that a silent movie as well. That Wile E. Coyote doesn't necessarily talk, but he is going to be going after either the Roadrunner or Acme or even both. So
Yeah.
like Warner Brothers could be going into that direction with both of those cartoons to make sure that they stick to like their roots as much as possible.
If you want an example of the tone I hope they're going for with Coyote versus Acme, Thief and the Cobbler, because Richard Williams always described that as a silent movie with sound. Because there's music going on in some of the chase
Yeah,
sequences, there's
true.
people talking, but there's not a whole lot of talking. Because I can
Hmm.
imagine like the judge and everything. So it'd be really great. I'd love to see like Marvin the Martian as the judge, or some like really obscure
Oh
Looney
god,
Tunes
yeah.
character,
No, like if you're
or
gonna
maybe
go
it's
into the
Gossamer or something as the
or like
lawyer.
if you're gonna go into that obscure route, you might like what would be a good plot twist? Just put in the dodo. You don't like
Oh,
our products? Well,
I
then screw
love
you.
that No, he's the prosecutor.
Oh yeah.
And then like the whole jury is full of like the Martians from Mars.
Yeah.
How do you
pretty
find the defendant? Holds up the sign, says guilty.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my
and
god.
in regards to like the other the Hanna-Barbera properties, I love the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I want to see
Mhm.
them do something more with it, and they kind of did. If you don't know, DC did like a relaunch, like
Yes, that's
a
true. Like the
relaunch, and
comics.
I've read the Flintstones ones, and I love those. I really love those. Some people say they're a little too dark. I
Yeah.
like that. Because come on, the show's cartoony. It's obviously a prime time sitcom. When you really look at the comic book, it's like really dark. There's like a scene where like Mr. Slade is calling for some ice cream. It's like, it's a new invention, it's ice cream, whatever. It's the whole phrase. And it's this little turtle with a dish, and there's ice cream in it. And by the time he gets to where he's supposed to go, Slade goes down at the turtle, and the ice cream's all melted. It's like, oh, Floyd, you disappoint me. It's all melted. Away with you. And then that pays off later when he comes back with like some food ever after Mr. Slade has an argument with Fred, and he's like, oh, you're the only one that understands me. And I just like that angle. Of course, obviously, I'm not going to go that direction because doing family-friendly stuff is a tightrope walk because you have to please both audiences. And I'll get to discussion later in another story we're doing, which I'm really excited to talk about, if you know which one. But regardless, there is a way you can pander to both audiences. Don't talk down. Like, really make the joke subtle and do what you can. It's a bit of a juggling act, but you really got to know exactly who this joke is for, whose joke's this, or otherwise it's going to go over both heads. And it's funny that they're bringing back Wacky Races, because oddly enough, Wacky Races is based off of a very famous Blake Edwards movie. You know which one?
Oh, it's a mad, 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 mad world?
Nope. This one is an actual race movie, and it's actually worth checking out. It's called The Great Race, and it has Jack Lemmon in it, and the name escapes me. But that whole movie is based off of a parody of an actual race that happened in the 1900s. And just seeing Jack Lemmon in this whipply... Professor Fade is the character's name, by the way. He makes up for the whole movie. This whipply snidelash kind of look, just having this whole car full of gadgets and stuff. It's a long movie, but my God, it's hilarious just seeing him play off of this assistant Max.
Nice. And the one thing that I do want to mention about this whole article in general, like, I know a lot of people nowadays, they're pretty much discussing all about the aspect of the Tom and Jerry movie, because from here, all they're talking about is the Tom and Jerry movie, how's it going to go, and is it necessary, and all that stuff. But for me, I feel like with what this article presents, I feel like there is a far bigger story that nobody is really talking about, and that is the factor of how Warner Brothers is really taking itself a lot more seriously with its animation front. Because let's be honest, guys, Warner Animation Group is hands down the most overlooked of the major animation studios. Because when you think about it, a lot of people right now, they're pretty much out there discussing about all the different animation studios like Disney, Pixar, Illumination, DreamWorks, and even some of the lower tier ones like Blue Sky and Sony, but Warner Brothers, not that much. I mean, yeah, sure, people are talking about the Lego movie, but they're just talking about that as a franchise. And for me, I feel like this is a great thing that Warner Brothers is now going to be going full steam ahead, because they need a new strategy right now. Their original movies, let's be honest, like, you can love them, you can hate them, but like, they come and go really quickly. Like Storks, like, it just happened in a snap and nobody's really talking about it all that much. And the greatest example that I can mention about this is that it hasn't even been a month since Smallfoot came out in theaters, and look how many people are talking about that now.
It's kind of a shame too, because, well, I'm in the guilty party because I sadly didn't see that movie. I opted for The House with a Clock in its Walls. I need my October fix. Don't judge me. And very briefly, yes, I know about the Sonic movie at Paramount. I think that's the one with Jim Carrey, I think it is. He was doing Eggman or something.
Yeah, well, that one is Paramount, yes.
Yeah, well, anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Smallfoot. It's kind of a shame because these movies sort of come and go, and you can really base their popularity on when they're being discussed, when they're being talked about. Again, it's the same case with Iron Giant. That came and went, but when home video kicked in, I was like, wow, this is a good movie. How come nobody saw it? Well, did you see it when it came out in theaters? It's really more that case of A, interest, and B, do I really want to see this movie now? And that's really the two benefactors and problems when it comes to a film being released. Is it a good time to bring this movie out? Will audiences have a big demand? They will later on. There's always the home video market and the television market. But at the same time, you're basing your mode of, is this movie popular, on that very first weekend. And depending on how it ranks and how it lives on is really based on that audience that's going to talk about it and see it. And that's usually the plus and the negative side when it comes to releasing stuff like this. But I do agree. And again, it ties back to what you mentioned earlier. Tom and Jerry is such a popular property because there's so many different iterations. Tom and Jerry Kids, the recent one they did, I think Tom and Jerry Tales, which I saw a couple of episodes of. as it's such an easy concept. It's a chase between a cat and a mouse. So obviously they're going to go for that easy because of the gags and the traps and the many ways they try to outsmart each other. There's been versions done by Chuck Jones as well in the 70s, which I don't think many talk about unless they do. But obviously, the one property they're going to look at and say, okay, this is more of a necessity to me. They're going to look at that and say, what are they doing with this? I don't care about some of these others. But I do agree. I think Warner Brothers is taking a step in the right direction here. They're planning things out. They're saying, okay, we have this, and if this does not work, we have a backup plan right here, which is very, very important. When you're a studio, you got to have that. I read a book called Final Cut, which is on the making of Heaven's Gate, and it's a great look into the studio system and how they organize things. Like, okay, this is our big picture, this is our B picture. We're going to release releases in the off season, and I think what they're doing now is really smart. They're planning ahead. They're looking at what properties are going to catch of the interest. If it doesn't get much interest, there's another property people are going to go to, and they'll say, oh, well, at least we got this, other than that. So I think now the fact they're talking about Tom and Jerry is the fact that it's recent, it's upcoming. So after they look at this, examine it, dissect it, and digest it, they can say, okay, what's next? So then Warner Bros. Will be like, oh, now what do we do? Because I think you, again, to quote your animation look back Pixar video, when they released Toy Story, they're like, well, what do we do now? We got nothing. Oh yeah, we got A Bug's Life.
Exactly. I do agree that they definitely are going in the right direction, especially when their original movies aren't really doing all that much, and also the Lego movie, let's be honest, nowadays is kind of losing steam, especially after the Lego Ninjago movie, and I think this is the direction that Warner Brothers should go. It's the fact that they have so many legendary animated properties that they should really nail that. They should really go full steam ahead onto it to remind people about their legacy, and that should be a big selling point. It's that Warner Brothers is the house of like Bugs Bunny and also all the Hanna-Barbera characters like the Flintstones, Tom and Jerry, and Scooby-Doo and stuff like that. So I think they should nowadays really try to go and take advantage of that and try to make a new form of adaptation. They don't necessarily have to make a live action mix onto it,
No.
but going into full animation with many of those films, I think it could be a good welcome, not just for the studio itself in order to go and prominently grow with the materials that they have, but also at the same time to go and crap, I lost my train of thought. But it's not just to grow the studio. Oh yes, not just to grow the studio, but also to grow the properties themselves. In a way, I guess you could look at it in the same veins of how Disney is making those live action remakes to breathe new life onto their classic properties. And that's what Hanna-Barbera is pretty much, not Hanna-Barbera, but what Warner Brothers is trying to do with the Looney Tunes and with the Hanna-Barbera properties, but not with live action, but with animation.
Exactly. And to tie in a little bit of that, because someone just brought up a pretty interesting question here. What's the difference between a good crossover and a bad crossover? Let's look at it this way. We had some Tom and Jerry movies that were straight to video, which were not good because they said, okay, well, this property is well known in the public mind. Let's do a little twist on that.
Yeah.
There's a moment where you feel like this is a bit of a cash grab because it's like, okay, this is in the public conscience. Let's go after it, or at least try to do two at once. The definition of a good crossover is that you have characters playing off of each other, even if they poke fun at each other and stuff like that. In terms of bad crossover, it's when they don't meet up.
It's
and
like
it's just
when
there
there's
for
like two random things and that they don't blend well. You need two elements that are able to like mix with each other pretty well. Like a great example is actually something that came out recently. It was an episode of OKKO, and they did this entire giant crossover. Like the main ones is like with OKK. It's like with the main character of OKKO teaming up with characters from Teen Titans Go, the Ben 10 reboot, and Steven Universe, and then like you see this entire big like mixing pot of all the classic and modern Cartoon Network shows all together at once. And that actually worked out well and received a lot of high praise, even though it was just an 11-minute episode.
And I'm going to say just on the forefront here, this is probably a bad example, but regardless, a technically good idea of crossover, this just recently came out, the Mystery Science Year 3000 comic. They're invading public comic books. Like, it's very, very obscure kind of stuff. So to see your favorite character take part in the storyline or even riff on like certain attributes, it's a great idea. It's taking the concept of the show, which is riffing bad movies, and just doing something different with it, doing something unique. If you're going in that angle, that's fine. Or unless you're just trying to, if you're trying to fit a square peg into a small hole, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's certain ways.
Actually, you know what would be a really interesting discussion of what could count either as a good or bad crossover? All those That Guy with the Glasses anniversary videos, do they count?
I could go through each and every one and say, you're almost there, but no, there's this and this and this. You're almost there, but no, this and this and this. I'll be honest, when those movies came out, my thoughts on them were, they're ambitious, but they're lacking in heart. They're really lacking in heart. There's jokes, there's a story, but there's nothing to anchor it. I'm pretty sure this looked, great in the first draft and stuff, and I know certain stories where they had like different ideas for this and this and this, and I kind of would have liked to see like if they went in that kind of direction instead of what we got as a final product.
Yeah, that is interesting. I feel like that is kind of like a whole discussion in itself right there. But I think overall we've pretty much covered a good chunk of like this Warner Brothers story. And honestly, I'm really excited to see Warner Brothers come back because they are kind of like they are currently the underdogs, and I would like to see Warner Brothers perform well and actually be big, be back again to be big in the animation front.
So would I. The three that I grew up on, well, four if you count Cartoon Network, but that has like a bunch of Warner Brothers stuff. The three I always grew up on in terms of animation studios, it's Warner Brothers because of the Looney Tunes, Disney because of their fairy tales, and Nickelodeon because they were so different, original, and out there. And I'd love to see what Warner Brothers can do. I know they can do it, and they're starting to show signs of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is their resurgence.
Yeah, definitely true. So, with all that said, I would like to go into the chat wall right over here, and I would like to ask you guys, what do you think about Warner Brothers' big plans to really step up their animation game with their classic properties like Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers, and especially bringing out movies such as Scooby-Doo and Tom and Jerry? Are you guys excited for those? Are you guys a little bit worrisome? I would like to know what you think. Let's see. I don't have hopes for this movie. I don't have high hopes for this movie. The previous live-action Hanna-Barbera movies were really bad. Rather it be Scooby-Doo or the Flintstones. I would rather see a computer-animated movie of Tom and Jerry where they don't talk and actually stick to the source material. Well, I mean, with Tom and Jerry, that is kind of what they're doing. I mean, there will be live-action elements. I mean, like, it's more... It will be an animated Tom and Jerry movie, but it's in a live-action environment. It's kind of like how they built the Walking with Dinosaurs movies.
Yeah. Well, as long as they don't talk.
Yeah. That is true. Oh God, that is true. Jesus.
I can imagine the horrors of that. Tom is voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. Jerry is voiced by Michael Crawford.
Yeah. My only comment to all of that would actually be, don't you believe it?
Exactly.
Yeah, let's see. I'm honestly just not gonna set my hopes too high for these films. A live-action animation Tom and Jerry movie isn't a horrible idea, but you know how Hanna-Barbera gets screwed over by film adaptations. In fact, as you said it so dedicatedly yourself, they must be rolling in their graves so bad that they've made their own racetrack. Oh, I did say that in animation. Look back.
Okay. Let me back up a little here. There is a blog post that the daughter of Harold Ramis wrote, which I recommend reading, by the way.
Okay.
Where she mentioned about her reaction, her times growing up with the Ghostbusters franchise, how that meant her as a kid, and then seeing the 2016 movie and everybody's reactions to the trailer and stuff, and everyone saying, oh, Harold Ramis is running his grave, blah, 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 blah. And she made a really good point. Don't connect it to the death of a famous celebrity, because even then, that will just add more poison to the bile. Like, if you don't like it, that's fine, but keep the past creators out of this, please. Rolling in his grave is already a dead horse joke to begin with.
Yeah. I do get what you mean. Let's see. Do we have any other comments? I'm worried. I think it would be cringe. It would be a cringy hybrid like the Hanna-Barbera movies. I would like to see a motion capture animated film of Harry Potter from Warner Animation Group. I don't think that's gonna happen because right now they're a lot more focused on on what was it, Fantastic Beasts and stuff like that.
Mm. Here's my favorite one right here. No offense to, just lost it here. No
Yeah,
offense to Tim's story, but he hasn't made a good movie since Barbershop.
since the first Barbershop. Oh.
Yikes. Ooh.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, like he has an well right now he does have another chance to try to redeem himself because they did say that one of his upcoming movies that he has soon that's coming out next year is going to be a reboot of Shaft. So maybe that'll be something.
Well, they already did Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson. I haven't seen it, but I'm a little curious about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That was
So
like in the. Do you even remember that one?
I don't think so. I never
Oh.
even knew there would be that thing.
There was. It was like the early 2000s. They were doing like Mission Impossible 2 and the Italian Job.
Oh, okay, I
That
see.
it was that era of movie. It's like we need them extreme.
Yeah. All right. So, with all that said, I think we're pretty much good with this story, and now we're gonna go and jump into our
Oh,
next.
oh,
What?
holy crap! He's doing a film adaptation of Corduroy. I grew up on that book.
Corduroy?
Yeah, it's a story about a bear that's missing a button on his overalls. Because this it's a stuffed animal bear's green overalls, and he like wanders around this toy store trying to find it so he can get like the. It's a good book. They did like a mini live action 30-minute short. It's really heartwarming.
Oh, okay, okay. But
That
anyways,
and Harold. Go on.
oh yeah. Well, I was about to jump into the next story, but all right. Anyways, moving on to our next story. So we're pretty much gonna go and jump into what could be the most controversial movie news story of the week, and this is actually gonna be coming from a couple of actresses that actually does have something to say regarding the company that they're supposed to be promoting in the first place, and that is actually regarding Disney. And what I'm talking about, of course, is actually going to be regarding, first off, with Keira Knightley. Now, what recently happened is that she appeared in an episode of Ellen, and she talked about how she's trying to raise her daughter and how to raise her right. And one way she's trying to do it is that she actually banned certain Disney movies for her to watch. The two that she pointed out include Cinderella and The Little Mermaid, where she actually stated that, hold on, reading from my source here from BBC. Knightley told Ellen DeGeneres that 1950 Cinderella waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't rescue yourself, obviously. Oh, don't. No, oh, wait, no. Sorry, I meant. Oh, wait, hold on. Waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't. Rescue yourself, obviously. I forgot to separate those two. Okay, anyways. And then there's also The Little Mermaid, where she says, I mean, the songs are great, but do not give your voice up for a man. Hello? And she even also adds that, and this is one that I'm quite annoyed about because I really like the film. I love The Little Mermaid. That one's a little tricky, but I'm keeping to it. And what's interesting is that afterwards, we also got word from Kristen Bell, which you may know is the voice of Anna from Frozen. And she also added in her thoughts into it as well, where she mentions that she would question her kids when they would watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Where it actually states right over here that when she would be watching it with her daughters Lincoln and Delta, who are 5 and 3 respectively, she would ask them, don't you think it's weird that Snow White didn't ask the old witch why she needed to eat that apple or where she got the apple? And then she would also add, don't you think that it's weird that the prince kisses Snow White without her permission? Because you cannot kiss someone if they're sleeping. So that's pretty much the big controversy right now, is that both Kristen Bell and Keira Knightley are pretty much speaking out against Disney, despite the fact that both of them do have upcoming movies. You got to keep in mind that Keira Knightley, very, very soon, she is actually going to be appearing in Disney's Nutcracker movie, while Kristen Bell, of course, she is going to reprise her role as Anna in Ralph Breaks the Internet, and even next year, where she will be appearing in Frozen 2. And what's even very ironic about Kristen Bell's statement is that in Ralph Breaks the Internet, Anna will be appearing next to Snow White. So, Morgan, I would like to know, do you have any thoughts regarding what these two women have said about the Disney princesses?
Ooh, remember how I said earlier there's one of these stories that I cannot wait to talk about.
Oh, is this it?
This is the one.
Oh
This
boy.
is the one.
Oh
Not the
boy.
one you're thinking of, but it's this one. And here's why. Because when you sent me those stories earlier in the week, that was the one that caught my eye so much. I was like, wait, what? Really? You got to be kidding! And I read it, and for the past few days, it's been racking around my brain so much to the point where I have like this essay-long thesis, but now I got to chisel it down more. Um, so okay, let me. This was hard. This was really, really hard of a debate because number one, not only are they actresses, but they're mothers. That's the number one thing to keep in mind. Yes, they
Yes.
perform characters, but they're mothers. And no disrespect to them, no disrespect at all. Keira Knightley has a 3-year-old girl. Good for her. And she's limiting certain things that her daughter can see. That's fine. That's fine. She's being a parent. She's doing what she can, even though she's working for the company, and that's fine. That's okay. I don't have any problems with that. You're being a parent. You're being who you are. I have no problems. That's
Yeah.
your opinion. You don't want to show your kid, this movie or that movie. Fine. That's 100% fine. I have no faults.
Can I
But
pause? Can I pause on you on that because that's actually
yes.
something that I do want to mention because there is another
Okay.
article on Entertainment Weekly that does actually explain that afterwards Kristen Bell does try to explain herself and it like of course no surprise this did receive a massive amount of backlash and she even explained herself that the reason why she would say those things is actually because she is a mother where one tweet reads, I find the outrage annoying and misplaced as well. I'm a mom who wants my girls to possess critical thinking and ask a ton of questions. So that's what we do when we read books. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the main aspect about why why they've done this in the first place. It's not necessarily that they're against Disney and that they're against these Disney princesses in particular. It's more the factor that they are mothers and they want to protect their daughters. And the thing is that even though Morgan, I'm sure you're not a parent. I know I'm not a parent. I hope. I gotta call her on that. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, is her name Debbie?
No. Debbie, oh my god.
Let's see if anyone remembers that running gag from eons ago.
Good God! Wow, that would be
Whoa.
amazing. But no, what I'm
It'll be Debbie 40 years after, like the Halloween movie.
Oh God, no! I'm mostly gonna hear the most out of this because I might get so many comments going. So who's Debbie?
No, seriously, who wants to see a Kickstarter movie where it's mad with this safe house full of gadgets and stuff? No,
Oh
no,
God,
that's
no,
not gonna
no.
go that
But
route.
as I was trying to say is that okay, we are not parents,
No,
but
no.
but we do understand the mindset that when you are a parent, your protectiveness for your child really goes to the max. So you want to make sure that like they are raised the best that they could possibly can so that they could
Hmm.
be well-mannered and intelligent adults so that they can go in the world on their own with the right mindset.
Sorry, I'm just looking over in the chat.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
my mom's name is Debbie.
My mom's name is Debbie. No, oh
Uh,
God, wow.
oh, a couple got the reference. Couple got the reference. Anyway,
Oh, that's
back to your
interesting.
point.
Okay, but no, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Is the factor that with Keira Knightley and Kristen Bell, they're not against Disney. It's more the factor that they are mothers, and that is kind of the mindset that they would go, even with the kind of movies that they would watch, especially with the Disney films where like sometimes when you would put on a movie you would have a moment where you do have to ask your kids questions about like what they've seen and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
So, let's put on the resume button on you. So, you were saying, but
yes. Look, I may not be a parent, but let's put it this way: we see kid stuff once in a while, and it's usually because A, we want to see what they're watching, B, to see if this is as good as it was back then when we saw this kind of thing, and C, we're kind of interested in seeing what everyone's talking about, what's going on. Oh, what's this gumball here? Because you want to know if it's still the same as the material that we grew up with. But going back to this issue, just this issue as a whole, I don't have a problem with said person saying, okay, you can't, see this movie because, I have some reasons. Okay, fine. But it's sort of up to the parent about what they feel is right for their kids or not. And in regards to these two movies, go with Keira Knightley's situation, Little Mermaid, okay, that's an open-ended discussion. That's really open-ended because one, the main character is a teenager going through the whole usual teenage kind of things, and that can either rub some people the wrong way or they'll see it as an interesting character study. Especially the fact that she's literally going to the ends of the earth just to meet this guy. And some can actually just take that the right way or the wrong way. And for me, I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I do remember a good bulk of it because as a kid, I would watch that movie a lot. In fact, I even had some slippers with Ariel's head on it, and I usually talked to them like it was a real person. So, yeah, that can either go, oh, that's kind of cute, or Norman Bates, Norman Bates. The, the thing is, they can pick apart these little things and sort of say, well, this could get the wrong idea, that can get the wrong idea. Okay, fine. That character had a mixed reception when the movie first appeared anyway. There were critics saying, oh, this character's annoying, or oh, this character's kind of interesting because she's rebellious. She wants to do more than just be, a creature swimming in the ocean. She wants to explore more. And then she meets Prince Eric, and that becomes entirely different. That I can understand because that's been talked about for years on end since that movie debuted. So that I understand. Cinderella is the one I'm trying to pigeonhole the most because the character is good, kind, and patient. And no matter how terrible the situation is, she's living it. She's doing what she can to survive in the moment. I don't think it's a case of waiting for someone to rescue her. She's doing what she can. She's in a tough situation. She's doing all of this for the case of living. It's not the case where she knows that somebody's going to come and save her. No. But if there's one thing I do have a problem with that movie, it's the prince. He's not very well developed. So
you're saying that as if the prince has any development in the first place. He doesn't even have a freaking name, for God's sakes.
No, we'll just call him Prince Albert. But here's the thing. She's good. She's kind. She has friends. Okay, they're in the form of animals, but it's a Disney movie. Go figure. But even then, at the end, they're risking their lives to save her. That whole ending is like something out of an Alfred Hitchcock movie. She's locked in her room. They're trying on the glass slipper and stuff, and the little mice are trying to get the key and everything. Like, that's complete devotion. That at least, tells me, okay, if you're kind and good enough, there are people out there that will help you. That's the message I get from Cinderella. The Disney version, at least. So the fact that you're not showing these movies because you think they will cause these bad things. Look, I think Kristen Bell is kind of sort of doing the right thing, even though it's a little iffy. You're talking to your kids about this. Like, what do you think of this scene? What do you think of that scene? Are you unsure about this sort of thing? So that way later they can go back and say, okay, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Because at least you're getting an idea of what your kids are thinking and what they want to do. But then there's option number 2, and this is something I was thinking about too. If you're not going to show them this variation of the story, and when I mean the story, I don't mean just the fairy tale, because there's been tons of fairy tale variations. But I mean in regards to how the story's told, how it's done through different versions of media and TV shows. You're not going to show them The Little Mermaid. Okay, fine. What about Splash? What about Aquamarine? There's other versions that have done better or worse, and it really varies on the type of story you want to tell to your kids. Because even we go back to the Grimm's fairy tales, those have been changing ever since day one. Like Little Riding Hood, there's so many alternate endings. The wolf eats her, wolf walks away, wolf eats her, woodcutter comes in and goes, "I'll save you! Here I come to save the day!"
Yeah.
And arguably, a lot of people are gonna hate me for this. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I kind of think the romance in Splash is a little bit developed a little better. I mean, Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, the way they meet, the way they walk around in Manhattan, minus crazy Eugene Levy trying to prove that she's a mermaid.
Yes.
It's weird because that came before The Little Mermaid. So, point being, if you're not going to show this movie, okay, fine, all the power to you, but just know later on in time, somewhere down the road, they will see it. They'll be over at a friend's house, they'll probably offer it or something, and they'll come back like, well, why did you not want me to watch this? And, probably question it. Don't have that tight of a grip, but at the very least, if you're not going to, show A, why not show B? Or at the very least, talk to your kids about it or something. Because even general kids media had that kind of ability. Like Sesame Street, for example, when they're talking about death for the first time with, the passing of Mr. Hooper, they aired that intentionally around Thanksgiving weekend, so families could be there, so their kids could understand complex ideas and things like this. So again, on the whole, I'm not in favor or even supporting their decisions. Again, they're parents. They
Hmm.
choose whatever they want to do. I mean, hell, when I was young, there were certain things I was limited to seeing. Um, this goes to a funny story. When I was young and 4, and I was with my grandmother, I purchased Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. Okay, I didn't purchase it, but you get the idea.
Hmm.
And I saw it at least 3 times. The jokes kept going over my head, like, yeah, this is a funny movie. And then later, my mother found out, she's like, yeah, we're gonna take that away from you. You're not gonna see this again. But why? It's funny. And then years later, I see it again, I'm like, whoa, um, yeah, so much went over my head.
Yes.
Like, there's certain movies that can go over, a kid's head, certain things. Fine, that's fine, but at least have an understanding of both sides of the story, because they could be avoiding something that's either grand or just not grand. At the very most, again, just talk to them. Talk to them. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Or just something, because you never know. They could have a different
Hmm.
viewpoint about this thing.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to add regarding this subject, like you really nailed a lot of good stuff in there, but also you got to keep in mind that with all this, we are discussing about art. And the thing with art is that it is very subjective, and how people read into many of these movies and many of these stories can be a lot more different how others would as well. And the way that you would interpret them can be a little bit different, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong about it. And
Hmm.
that's the funny thing, is that I know that some of the earlier Disney princesses would get a lot of flack, but there are ways that you can interpret princesses like Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, and Ariel, that you can see them as as actual positive feminist role models. Like they can actually do that. And I have
Yeah.
seen discussions about like some good marks about them, that a lot of these earlier Disney princesses, they would emphasize that like mostly good things come to those who are kind and considerate, and that's how they would get their happily ever after, which is a good moral
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that they send out a bad message about women and stuff like that,
No.
and
Well,
especially
unless it's Mars Needs Mums, that's a whole different ordeal.
yeah, definitely. And
If you're good and kind to your mother, aliens will abduct her and program her brain into a bunch of robots. Yeah, lovely message. It'll give him night terrors for weeks.
oh yeah, definitely. No, but on top of that, it's the funny thing with these classic Disney characters is that yeah, they can be interpreted as a way that they can be good. And I think for the parents, it's up to them to find some, to not just like ban those things and not let them watch it, but to find a way in order to be raised well, in order to have them be viewed correctly. And I understand with these mothers, they want to have their daughters be raised well, and especially you got to keep in mind, especially in this
In
day,
today's
yeah, in
world, yeah.
today's world where feminism is really on the rise with the hashtag Me Too movement and stuff like that. So of course that they are really going to be protective and have their daughters try to be raised to the point that they can be like highly strong and highly
Hmm.
independent. That like a little, like actually have a bit of that they don't need no man mentality. And I
Yeah,
want to go on.
and I have nothing against that. I have 100% nothing against it. I want to see more stories from this kind of angle, more so that kind of angle. But one, it has to be done right. It has to be with the right property, and at the very least, it has to be told very well. Because when you look back at stuff from the 30s, the 40s, and 50s, they're not held up very well because they were either A, sticking close to the story as close as they could, and B, because of the time frame they're in. I mean, we have Peter Pan talking like as if he's from a Boy Scout from the 1950s. But does that diminish the charm? No, because there's fantasy to it. There's aspects of it that at least somehow slightly distract from that. Um, now, if I was a parent, and I'm going to be honest here, I'm just going to say this as a bit of an example. I 100% hate Spirited Away. Everybody loves that movie. I've seen that movie twice now. I'm probably gonna make this Twitch explode. Am I making the Twitch explode? Oh
No,
well,
not
whatever.
yet. Not yet. They're still talking about the hashtag Me Too movement.
Yeah, and Peter Bear was great.
They're not listening. Go on, go on.
Oh, there we go. There's one.
Oh, okay. Oh crap! Someone
I got
listen.
someone's
Run,
attention.
Morgan, run!
I have problems with the story. I have problems with some of the characters. I have problems with the environment and certain things. The parents are such idiots. Oh, look, an abandoned amusement park. Let's go visit. No, 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 no. Are you that stupid? It's like something out of a horror movie. I'm more about. I'm more of a guy that likes Keys Delivery Service, Wolf Children. And I'm going to be honest. If my kids wanted to see that movie, Spirited Away, I'd let them. You know, I would be fine with it. I'd cringe a lot and get night terrors for weeks as the big baby and no face eating me, but at most, so what? They want to see it, they want to experience it, that's fine, because they'll miss out on the experience like I did. I saw trailers of that movie, I didn't know what to make of it, and then I think like 4 years ago, James offered to watch it, and I felt so burnt out. I couldn't. I almost could not finish that film. Because there was so much. I had so many problems with it. Because I've seen so many fantasy movies before then. Labyrinth, Neverending Story that had so much imagination pouring into it. What's this? Oh, it's a girl trying to get her parents back who got turned into kids, and she's working for
Pigs.
a bathhouse.
Pigs.
Yep. Yeah, they get turned into pigs. My mistake.
It's a much more frightening view than turning into kids.
That train sequence still scares me. Are they spirits? Are they ghosts? Are they in limbo? Are they going to heaven? Are they going to hell? Oh no, it's a little break from the crazies. There's still crazy stuff going on in that train!
You're in the spirit world. There's no going back.
Man, I just wanted to get that out there. But
yeah,
no. Again, you're not going to show these films. Fine, but there's alternatives. There's other things you can show. I mean, hell, Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, they adapted those stories. Well, the show is not 100% perfect, but at least they're adapted fine. I mean, hell, they even did Cinderella and some of the Disney classics. I mean, Matthew Broderick plays the prince in Cinderella, and he's weirdly more interesting in that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they even did The Little Mermaid, too, and kept in the dark ending.
Ah, right.
She turns into a spirit, not sea foam.
Yeah, also, there is one more thing that I would like to add. Like, the fact that I did mention that this is art, and art is subjective, so you can interpret the many ways that you want. So, with that said, so considering that it is subjective, it is, like, a big part of how this is controversial, of course, is the fact that it is from Kristen Bell and Keira Knightley. So I would like to ask, what makes your Disney characters so different than the Disney princesses that you would criticize? Because we are discussing about Anna from Frozen and Elizabeth Swann from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Because I'm sure that there are people out there who would criticize those characters as just not really good as viewing, well, not good characters to view as positive female role models, where Elizabeth Swann can be interpreted as this like dull damsel in distress, or you can look at Frozen and Anna is more of a klutz, where she would immediately fall in love with the first man that she sees and stuff like that. So there can be a bit of backlash against that as well.
Love is an open door. Now I get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, like,
it took me that long.
That's why there is a bit of a backlash, because really, when you look at it, it's just like, who are you to speak against these Disney characters when you yourselves are a little bit guilty of that?
And even then, again, we have fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel and all those others. They're morality tales. They were made with morals and lessons. So if you shut these things out, they might not learn something from them unless you tell it to them. And you might tell it right or wrong. It depends on how you perceive that message. Which, by the by, if she's going to ban Cinderella and the Little Mermaid from the viewing home, maybe she should toss on the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. She does not want to know her 3-year-old was co-starring with a wife beater.
Oh my God, that is actually true.
Yeah!
That is a very good point, actually.
Yeah! It's like Heather Langenkamp in New Nightmare. Do you show your kids horror movies? No, no, they're not old enough.
Yeah, that man, that I never thought of that. That is true, especially with the controversial position of Johnny Depp.
And
Like,
by the by, if you want a bigger assessment to the whole, should you let your kid watch these things? Go watch Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There's a great thesis behind that.
yeah, that is a good point. And I think honestly overall to pretty much summarize the whole situation, I think like this is a case that everybody is pretty much over exaggerating in this situation. Like, yes, I mean, Keira Knightley and Kristen Bell, they are exaggerating in their position, and it does seem a little bit hypocritical of them to do so, especially when they're supposed to be promoting Disney movies like the makers of Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, and all that stuff. Like, it does seem hypocritical,
Oh,
but they are parents. Like, of course they would have a bit of that mentality. And then on the other hand, yeah, like the people who would speak out against Kristen Bell and Keira Knightley, yeah, like there is a part of them that they are exaggerating as well, and like they are going a little bit too far attacking Keira Knightley and Kristen
mm,
Bell. But again, like a lot of it is
yeah.
from the cartoon community, so of freaking course. But on top of that, I just want to say also like sure they got like Kristen Bell and Keira Knightley, they got their excuse, and the internet technically they got their excuse as well because well the internet, they got the temperament of Yosemite Sam and Donald Duck.
Blast them friggin' varmints!
I mean, like
Dear internet!
I mean, that's the thing. The like people on the internet, they're desperate to find something to get angry over. Like they want, like they get mad and they would throw a rant at a drop of a hat. If you don't believe me, look at all the people who are still ranting about me. Stop hating Sony and all that kind of crap. So I'm just saying.
I'm just sitting over here, and by the by, just to counteract so much, Keira Knightley, you're starring as the Sugar Plum Fairy. Really let that sink in.
Oh
I have
wow.
I've grown up on the Nutcracker. I've seen so many iterations. I like the ballet. The only good adaptation I've seen is Nutcracker Fantasy, weirdly enough, and even that has a strong female character in that one, like little Claire lost in this weird, strange world. Um, in regards to Wreck-It Ralph 2 and that little scene there with the princesses being all, there's one reason I'm not seeing that movie, and it's not because of that scene. Don't get me wrong. Just looking at the trailers and not trying to judge a book by its cover, I'm just getting like really cynical vibes from that. Like really synergy cynicalism from that. Like,
Oh really?
okay, case in point, what's the coolest dangerous place? This Disney site. Really? There's so many others. I mean, in the first movie, they were doing video games and inventing their own video games, and here it's just like, oh yeah, we have all these properties. Let's show them off. It's like you could have done something a little more creative than that, like creating original properties, like they did with Toy Story.
Yeah.
It's like you blew your shot there. And another thing too, you have a room full of Disney princesses and no Maid Marian, no
Oh
the,
god,
pr- the
that's a
Atlantean
whole
princess
rant
from
in itself,
Atlantis.
Morgan. That's a whole discussion right there. It's like, where's
Yeah,
Kina? Where's Eilonwy?
I will forgive it this much if it has like I don't know maybe like a side gag where like there's a bouncer not letting them in. If that's the case, fine, all the power to you. But come on, you can't let them off.
Actually, Morgan, there is one thing that I will say that I want that it might bring back a lot of your interest. Is that I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know all that much, but I heard apparently there is a rumor that there will be a cameo from what they say is a fan favorite Muppet. So you can't come on. So
Nope,
no,
nope.
you still don't want
You're
it.
you're 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 not doing it for me. I mean, Ralph breaks the internet sounds bad. Screw you, movie. It should be Ralph wrecks the internet.
Oh, that. I didn't they say that actually? I think that was one of the gags in the trailers. It's like should it
It
be
is.
Ralph? Yeah, like at the end. Yeah.
No. Like I said, it's you look at something like that in Ready Player One. It's like, yeah, Ready Player One's not perfect, but they took advantage. They went to the moon. They got so many of those franchises, even just for like a 5-second gag. This is more like, oh yeah, we got Star Wars. We can just throw them into one movie. No, please, no. Suspension of disbelief. And the whole movie is pretty much a retread of Toy Story 2. I mean, the controller on the game breaks. I have to go to the internet to find a new one. Doesn't that sound a little familiar?
Oh, like Woody's arm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like there's other stuff I can see, like the new Bohemian Rhapsody that's coming out.
Oh God, yes, I'm excited for that one.
I want to see that. The guy who's playing Freddie McMercury, he was in Mr. Robot and he played King Tut in Night in the Museum. I want to see what he can do.
Yeah, that is true. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know, honestly, I forgot about who he is because most of the people who I see talking about that movie, when they would say about, oh, Bohemian Rhapsody is great, like, they would praise him, but they would also poke fun of the fact that he looks like a fish with his eyes.
That is where I come in.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, Raggedy Ann and Annie, the movie, you forgot who wrote the songs. It was the guy who wrote Being Green and all the other Sesame Street songs.
Paul
Joe Rapso.
Williams.
Yeah, I saved your butt that time.
Like
I was, yeah, I was.
That's true. I forgot.
Yeah, I was a patron member, and like when that review put, I was like, you do know who wrote the songs? No, who? What? Joe Rapso of Sesame Street.
Oh my God! Holy crap! What review was that for? I almost forgot.
Raggedy and Andy the musical.
Yes, that is true. Oh God, yeah, you got a point. Yeah, you did save me on that. So I think overall with this story right here, I think it's pretty much a case that everybody's pretty much over-exaggerating. So with that said,
Yeah.
I want to go into the chat wall right over here, and I want to ask, what do you guys think about this whole controversy about how Kristen Bell and Keira Knightley are raising their kids with these Disney movies? And how do you think about how the internet, what do you think also about the backlash at the same time? I want to know about your thoughts here.
We're getting some pretty good. They're not explosive, so at least that's the good thing.
Yeah. Let's see. I can somewhat understand the actress's arguments, and I am a fan of Belle's work in Frozen and The Good Place. But can't they tell their children between right and wrong? Can they not tell their children to focus on the visuals, music, talking animals, and so forth, not the apparent sexism? I've never gotten the message from watching the films when I was a child. I have no idea. I'm not a parent, but that's just my opinion.
I like this one. Flora Fauna saved herself from Iborn twice upon a time. Does that make her a good feminine hero? I'm glad somebody saw that movie.
Oh my God, that is a good question. I mean, well, technically, a more feminist role model in that film would be the fairy godmother.
Yeah, that is true, and Rod Rescueman is a parody of all the cliche, you know.
Yeah, that is yeah.
I'll save you!
Yeah, like a satire of those, like, dumb superheroes.
That's why I love that movie so much.
Yeah, that is a good point. Oh my God. I think, yeah, with that said, I think people got what they want to say about all this. Yeah, they got the idea. So, for our next story, though, we're going to... go on.
On a little joking manner, if they are going to do live-action Snow White, I wouldn't be too surprised if they end the movie with Grumpy waking up sleeping... not Sleeping Beauty, crap, another different movie. I wouldn't be too surprised if they end... Yeah, with Grumpy waking up Snow White.
You know, the funny
that
thing
could be a sequel in a nutshell right there. Just think about it.
The funny thing is that when you do look at the teaser posters or all the posters of Ralph Breaks the Internet, I can guarantee you Grumpy is going to make a cameo because he did actually appear with the Disney princesses with Eeyore.
And we already have an idea right here. Grumpy marrying Snow White. That's a good movie in a nutshell.
Actually, Morgan, I just want to say, you say that, but you have not seen Shrek the Musical.
And I don't want to.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You're not going to look at Lord Farquaad the same way again, I'm just saying.
Some things are for the best.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. And it is going to be
just saying, I could make it funny, but go on.
Yeah, it is going to be a bonus miscellaneous for our next story, but we are going to keep into the theme of over-exaggerating. Now, this is not necessarily going to be about the subject of parenthood, or it's not going to be regarding to actresses. This is actually regarding one actor who's kind of overdoing his job just a bit. Just a little tad. Maybe he's kind of like making an overstatement about one movie that he is trying to promote, and I'm talking about Vin Diesel. Now, for those of you who don't know, Vin Diesel, he's going to be in a movie called Bloodshot, which is based on the Valiant comic, which is going to be developed by Sony Pictures. But from there, Vin Diesel would be saying things that, honestly, they sound a little bit crazy. I don't know about you, but I think he's kind of like overdoing it in terms of promoting. So this is what Vin Diesel said in an interview, reading from my source here in comicbook.com. Now, it says, you're watching something and you're going, I guess I expected that we would finally get here in the superhero universe, but I can't believe we're here. Dave Wilson, who's directing it, Guy Pearce, who is in it, is insane. We just have a great cast. Sony, you know that Sony is finally going to lead the charge in the superhero movies of the future because they can incorporate a part of reality and incorporating issues that exist in society and embedding them into a quote-unquote superhero movie. It's just awesome. So that's pretty much the big thing that he is highlighting, is that Vin Diesel stated that Sony Pictures, in the future, they will be the ones that will dominate the superhero movie industry. So with that said, Morgan, what do you think of this? What do you think about what Vin Diesel said?
Number one, it's kind of interesting to hear that my grandfather is finally directing a superhero movie. Okay, I'm joking. I'm joking that matter, but it's kind of weird seeing how his name's Dave. My grandfather's name is David, so.
Oh, okay.
Again, just a joking manner.
Yeah, all right, I see.
I do that once in a while. Like, oh my God, James went back in time and tried to save Manos the Hands of Fate by editing it, and his name's on the credits. No, regardless, there's moments where you're over promoting something and having overconfidence. This is nothing new. Nothing completely new. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was promoting Last Action Hero, he was really going all out on that. He was like, this is going to be the big thing. This will be the big ticket of the summer. It will crush Jurassic Park. And then Jurassic Park crushed them. So it's the typical standard promotion kind of fluff saying, we're bigger than you. And that's something studios often do. They would often do that. They would pinpoint a certain date or pinpoint a certain property and say, we got this, so you're not going to trample us, but another one's going to come along and trample them. So it's nothing really new to my ears per se. And to think this is going to change the nature of comic books, well, yeah, but there's others that are doing it too. And on top of that, there's other comic book companies out there other than DC and Marvel. Dark Horse, New England Comics, who did The Tick, by the way.
And in this case, it's Valiant. Yeah,
which I sadly don't know that well. IDW I know pretty well. They did The Storyteller, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's just another case where we have a property. We're trying to make this sell pretty work. Look at the promotional stuff for Mortal Engines. I'm not being sold on that at all, except giant Mad Max buildings. We've seen this story before, and again, that's why I keep pointing to Final Cut, the making and unmaking of a studio, especially the documentary too, which is narrated by William Dafoe. Interestingly enough, because that really shows what happens when a studio has so much overconfidence in the project, or even if someone has overconfidence in the project, they will literally overpromote it. It's the traditional, usual stuff that someone will do to overpromote something, and we've seen what happens. It's either a hit based on the way they're selling it, the way they're, shoving it in their face and saying, "Watch me, watch me, watch me," or it's the case where they'll just say, "Yeah, you're kind of cool. Ooh, what's this over here around the corner? Ooh, that looks kind of cool. No, come back to me. I had you. The great mighty Oz commands you."
Yeah, so basically it's either just going to be decent or it's just going to be a full-on flop.
And like I said, we've seen this situation before. Waterworld, which I have a soft spot for. I actually kind of like that movie. And Last Action Hero, Ishtar. It's either a project that had production problems or a project that was minusculely filmed and had no problems, and so they're trying to oversell it. And it's happened before. It's happened so many times. I could go into like an entire video about the Roadshow era and how there were so many studios. That is a very important era that really everyone should look into, because that was a time when big names had like this movie and that movie and this movie and that movie, and they sucked. Like, I'm sure they did well at the box office, and there were some that were kind of decent, but it just became so oversaturated. And going back to Disney, ironically, they had The Happiest Millionaire, which they filmed, they completed. Walt gave it its blessing before he tragically passed away. And they thought, okay, we're going to get into this business. People want big budgeted musicals. They sent it out there. Didn't do well. pulled out of the market while Warner Brothers bombed with Camelot. You know, it's when you think your product is going to fly, they will say, "Oh yeah, we got this, we got that, we got this. It's going to fly." When they're sweating nervously and saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work. I know it's going to work."
It's so good. It's
It's
so good.
it's a good show. It's happened more than once, and even when it comes to like getting a project, they'll do the same thing. Case in point, in the mid 70s, there was a fight between Universal and Paramount over their King Kong movies because RKO had like certain rights and stuff. And so Universal's like, we have a script. Paramount was like, we have a cast. Universal, oh, we'll just hold on to the rights for now. It's really a case where if you feel confident in the project, okay, good for you, but show that promise. What is the project? What's going on? What's the concept? If you believe these things will work, tell it. Give us those reasons. Give us those points. When I'm selling something to someone, I tell them, okay, you're not just getting, a plastic card, but it does this and this and this and this. And if you're not selling me those points, you're just rambling, as what my governmental science professor once said, nothing but verbal diarrhea.
Oh, that's a very good term right there. I guess.
Verbal diarrhea.
Yeah, and you do bring up a very good point, and I mean, like, it is true that this is very common, and like people are just, this is a part of the job that they got to do, that they got to heavily promote. What I find that is actually very interesting here is specifically what Vin Diesel said in general, stating, just reading him back once again, that Sony is finally going to lead the charge of superhero movies of the future because they're incorporating a part of reality and incorporating issues that exist in society and embedding them into a quote-unquote superhero movie. Okay, number one, this is I want to bring this up because this is not necessarily a knock on Sony Pictures, but this is more to say that the companies are a little, like, the current people that are heading the superhero movies, they're a little too big for even Sony Pictures to go and catch up. Marvel right now, they are at their prime. They are at their biggest. And when you compare to what Sony has done, yeah, it's not really that much. Like, I know that a lot of people are talking about how Venom is successful and it is making a lot of money at the box office. But when you do compare it to what's already out there with Marvel, and just this year alone, like, really, Venom just seems like pennies compared to what the Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War has done. Right now, like, nobody's really talking much about Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's pretty much, Venom is on the same level as them, so it's not necessarily anything for Sony to go and write about. They're not necessarily in a position, and even their movies in general, they have yet to really make something as humongous as any of the Marvel movies right now. And even, like, their movies aren't as big as any of the Warner Brothers movies right now, like any of the DC films. So Sony still has a whole lot to catch up. And maybe, maybe there could be a possibility that Bloodshot could be the one that could, like, actually ignite something really big. But in the position that they are in right now, Sony is not ready to actually lead that superhero thing. And also, there is another thing that I want to mention as well, is the factor that Vin Diesel has said that apparently they're going to do so because they're going to be incorporating social commentaries on their superhero movie. And I just want to say that right now. I believe that Vin Diesel should not say that during the same year that we got Black Panther. Like, are you freaking crazy, Vin Diesel? Have you even seen any of the recent superhero movies right now? It's kind of common, let's be honest. Have you even seen Wonder Woman, dude? I mean, seriously, I mean, like, are you comparing to what you did in Bloodshot to all your other Fast and Furious movies? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's onto something, because the moment I looked up Bloodshot on Wikipedia, I get this.
Let's see. Oh God, is that a bleeding butthole? Oh no! Oh, that's his chest. Oh, that's his chest. Oh. Yeah. Oh, and his bleeding on the American flag. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Apparently it's a former soldier with powers of regeneration and metamorphing made possible throughout nanites injected into his blood. That sounds so familiar.
Wait a minute. Yeah, it does, actually.
After having his memory wiped numerous times, he's out to discover who he really is and get vengeance on those who did this to him.
Isn't that
His
Punisher?
bloodstream... Yeah, that sounds a little like Punisher. Bloodstream contains a billion... A Bloodshot's bloodstream contains a billion nanocomputers, enabling him to heal from injuries quickly and interface with technology and shape-shift his mass. Throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, blah 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 blah, Afghanistan, blah 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 blah, facility in Nevada, blah 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 blah.
Okay,
Good luck with.
can somebody please take that clip right here? This is perfect material for a remix.
If you think you can make a political or some kind of social commentary with this material, good luck to you, buddy, because I don't see where that can be possible unless I'm missing something.
I don't know. Maybe they'll add something into it.
I'm looking at the cover of comic books, and he's like in front of the American flag, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you saying to me? I don't know what you're doing, but you're trying to say something. It's like it's like the new Halloween I saw this week. Okay, you're doing something, and at least it's interesting, but not boring.
Yeah. Well,
Which, by
I
the
know
way,
something is happening.
Yeah, which, by the way, not a bad movie, but it'll give you something.
Okay.
If you want to see Granny Laurie Strode hunt down Mike Myers in a safe house, Elmer Fudd style, I recommend seeing this in theaters.
Honestly, you know what would be an amazing plot twist to Halloween? It's like that whole thing is going on. Like Laurie Strode will unmask Michael Myers. It's Lindsay Lohan saying, "I want my body back."
Oh my god, it's funny you should say that because there is a moment. I don't want to give it away because it's still in theaters, but there is a moment where one guy goes nuts and he's like, "Oh, I'm the new Dr. Loomis and I'm the new Michael Myers," and then the movie goes, "Screw you."
Oh wow, really?
Oh yeah, that happens. Well, spoiler alert. Big spoiler. There's a character in the movie that's revealed to be the bad guy. Huh?
No,
sorry.
All
right.
Go on. Well, I'm trying to hide it. Like I don't want spoilers.
I get it. I'm being vague as I can here. There's a character that is proposed to be the next Dr. Loomis, but there's this big twist where he's like, "Oh no, I'm actually the bad guy," and I'm not kidding. He puts on Michael Myers masks and he like drags him into a van or something like that, and then like Mike Myers wakes up and he shoves him out of the van and he like kills the doctor by stamping his foot on his head like a jack-o'-lantern. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you done? Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So yeah.
I didn't know you were gonna see that movie.
I might be interested. Like it's a maybe. You know, it does.
Yeah,
it does seem intriguing, and it looks like it might. And ironically enough, it might. And so far, the box office say it might even overthrow Venom's record.
I have no problem with that because even though it has its stupid moments, it's actually kind of enjoyable.
Interesting. But I think overall with this, with the whole story of Vin Diesel, yeah, I think like we understand that he is just doing his job and he is trying to promote Bloodshot. But honestly, this is a lot of talk, and maybe it's a long time until we see anything that Sony would show. But yeah, so far, like, we just need to call out bullcrap on what Vin Diesel is saying. It's just you're going a bit too much there, man. You're going a bit much.
Okay, heavy back on the liquor here, because in comparison, you have Dwayne Johnson who's doing summer projects too, and yeah, and on social media he's like showing he's having a good time making these movies and promoting them. That's a way to do it. I'm seeing a lot of directors and actors these days sharing what they're doing on Twitter and stuff and saying, yeah, I think this is a good project because there's this and this and this. Ron Howard did it when he was doing Solo, and even though that did okay, movie's not bad, by the way. It's a great way to sell the film because you get to see what they're doing behind the scenes and everything.
Yeah, recently he has done that a lot with Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, which I'm a little curious about.
I have no idea how the fridge that's gonna happen, especially with the way that they're gonna lean more into an action-oriented Pirates of the Caribbean style film instead of being a comedy. It's like, how are you gonna do that?
It looks more like the African Queen if they crossed it with Anaconda in Congo. And I'm a huge sucker for jungle adventure movies because there's not a whole lot of them.
Well, I mean, ironically enough, African the jungle the ride itself, the Jungle Cruise was actually inspired by African Queen, so that could be it.
And even then, it's not a popular attraction for a pretty good reason.
Well, it gets its
Well,
moments.
it still is. It still
Yeah.
kind of is. I like that temple with the snakes.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just looking back. Like, I remember when I was at Disneyland this summer. Like, it did get some lineups.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with that said, let's go ahead into the chat wall right over here, and I want to know, what do you guys think about the crazy thing that Vin Diesel said? Do you guys actually agree with Vin Diesel about how Sony is going to go with superhero movies? Do you guys think it's all crazy talk? I would like to know, what do you guys think so far about what Vin Diesel is saying about Bloodshot? And also, what do you think about Bloodshot? Are you guys excited for the Bloodshot movie? Are you guys a little iffy? Like, I want to know your thoughts. Or is it, just want to know, is the chat wall even, like, on? Or is it working?
I think it's
like people. I think it's like it suddenly became silent. Oh, okay, there we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, it's like, is it moving? It's like suddenly the chat wall became pretty silent, and it's like pretty rare. Usually they can be pretty talkative. These people. Let's see, men. Well, we got one.
I think Vin Diesel.
I think Vin Diesel. We all think Vin Diesel too. I think Vin Diesel is the new I Am Groot. That should actually be in Suicide Squad 2. I think Vin Diesel.
Sorry, Vin Diesel is doing it too much. Yeah, like I said earlier, there's been moments where that has happened before.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the whole High Guardian Spice announcement. They told a lot, but they didn't show a lot. That is a good point. And even at that, High Guardian Spice did actually show some images. Like, Vin Diesel is just showing us words.
Sony is letting him say whatever he wants because they're still on the high of Venom. Again, that's happened before. United Artists had... No, not United Artists. Michael, whatever. I'll just abandon
Something,
that.
a place.
Something happened. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah, but I think with all that said, I believe we should be good right now with this story in particular. And now let's go and move on to our next one. Now, Morgan, I can see right behind you that you are an eclectic collector of DVDs and Blu-rays. Am I right?
Awesome. Yes, if I can just lift my little computer here. I can just move out of the way. There we go. There's the tower.
Yeah, there it is.
So there's that. And if I can just move a second without running over stuff. We have some of the collector sets down here. And my Blu-rays are nicely tucked away just right over here. And the Overstock is right under my desk.
Yeah, like with me, I got like this entire row, like right here. That's all DVDs and Blu-rays. Of course, when you watch my videos... Wait, nope. It's not my computer that has the camera. What the fridge am I... Actually, I can move this. I just realized. It's like, it didn't click into my head. So yeah, like, you got this entire collection right over here. And of course, like you see, like, all up there. Like, that's a good example of my DVD and Blu-ray collection, but the reason why I want to bring this up is because if you are an animation fan and a DVD and Blu-ray collector like myself and Morgan, well, this is going to be something that you should definitely add in your collection. Yes, Milestone Films has officially announced that they are going to be releasing on Blu-ray the oldest surviving animated feature ever, The Adventures of Prince Achmed. And if you guys don't know what that movie is, let me go and read you a little bit of synopsis from Blu-ray.com. Taken from the Arabian Nights, the film tells the story of a wicked sorcerer who tricks Prince Achmed into mounting a magical flying horse and send the rider off to a flight to his death. But the prince foils the magician's plans and soars headlong into a series of wondrous adventures, joining forces with Aladdin and the Witch of the Fiery Mountains, doing battle with the sorcerer's army of monsters and demons, and falling in love with the beautiful Princess Peri Banu. And on top of that, they have also revealed some of the bonus features that will be included, which there will be a lot, and they are highly fascinating. Of course, they mentioned that there will be a high-definition restoration featuring original color tinting and toning. But on top of that, we also get an hour-long documentary feature about the director, Lot Reiniger, and also a vintage commentary that she made. And on top of that, we also get a whole bunch of animated shorts that Reiniger has actually created. Many of these include The Secret of the Marquise, The Flying Coffer, 3 Dr. Dolittle shorts, which includes Lion's Den, A Trip to Africa, and Cannibal Land, The Death-Fying Chinaman. Now, keep in mind, this is 1928. They're not really that politically correct, just saying. The Caliph Stork, The Magic Horse, Aladdin and His Magic Lamp, The Star of Bethlehem, and The Lost Son. So that's all going to be featured in a 2-disc set. I don't know if they've mentioned if this is going to be just a Blu-ray or if it's 2 Blu-rays or if it means like a Blu-ray and a DVD, but that's pretty much the main thing. The Adventures of Prince Achmed is officially going to be coming on Blu-ray. So, Morgan, just out of curiosity, have you actually seen The Adventures of Prince Achmed? Just out of curiosity.
I want to. I really want to. The moment I saw your review of it, I was like, wow, this is actually very primitive. It's not only the first animated movie, but it's also technically, 1, the first stop-motion movie made, and 2, there are some Twice Upon a Time vibes there because of the lighting effects and what they do with the animation.
Yeah, it's essentially the same type of animation because in a way you could say that it is 2D stop motion because because a lot of these characters that you see here, it's all it is like shadow puppetry in a sense. So that's why like their movements is very similar to stop motion and would use that technique in order to create the movie.
And it's very important to preserve things like that because if they have a certain milestone in that life of cinema, it's important to preserve those bits because they have those attributes. They have those moments of that. For example, London After Midnight was like the last movie Lon Chaney Sr. did in the silent era before they switched over to the talkies. And that movie's unfortunately lost. That's lost. Oh, we have our stills. We have a recreation that Turner Classic Movies did. So having this being prestigiously restored and sent to Blu-ray is a big deal. It's about as big as oh, actually I can use this here. It's about as big as when they sent The Lost World onto Blu-ray because it's a milestone in cinema history. But at the same time, the animation history and the filmography is ever so growing because of the people working into it, how they got influenced and did these sort of things. So having this release of Blu-ray is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it broke new ground.
Yeah, especially the fact that even to this day, this is a movie that really does a lot, really does inspire a lot of even some prominent animators today, including Henry Selick, who is highly inspired by Lot Reiniger, and even Rebecca Sugar, where she even did an homage to her in the Steven Universe episode The Answer, which it uses a lot of the same similar animation techniques. And with that, one thing that I will say is that technically this is not the first time that Milestone did release The Adventures of Prince Achmed onto home media and stuff like that. There is actually a DVD, which I did actually buy right over here. And for the most part, in terms of the bonus features that they do offer, it's a little bit of the same thing. Like, you do get the documentary, which is called Lot Reiniger, Homage to the Inventor of the Silhouette Film. And, but what is interesting is that the major thing that it is going to add is all those animated shorts. Because the only one that it has on this DVD is just The Secret of the Marquise, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, you got like still galleries, and you got an optional audio track with intertitles spoken in English. So yeah, you do get that option, and I'm sure like you do get the same thing in there with the Blu-ray, but like you'll get a lot more. Now, the one thing though that I will say is that it is exciting that this news is coming out, but for me personally, there is a part of me that is a bit upset about this news because I just want to tell you, this DVD right here, this is freaking expensive. This is $40, this freaking DVD. and now
Does it-
they're gonna get a
Let
freaking
me-
Blu-ray out of it, and now it's like I want to upgrade, but this thing, man, this does not come cheap.
Oh, you're gonna be even more mad. You want to know how much it's going on Amazon for pre-order?
Oh, what is it?
In American dollars. Well, actually, I have Prime, so maybe that's why. Actually, no. This actually is the actual price. $26.77.
$26. $26.
Look at it. I'm not kidding. There we go.
Hold on. Oh yeah, there it is. $26.77. Well then, Milestone can eat a penis then. Like, holy crap, man.
Like, man, even I was pining for Arrow Video when they announced they were doing an American and a UK release of Waterworld. And there's a thing you do if you do a pre-order with them. What they'll do is they'll adjust it if the price goes down a bit, which is actually kind of nifty. But yeah, that's the
Yeah, that's the annoying thing. But I will say, though, this is definitely very exciting. And I think that this is definitely in the must-watch for animation fans. So, honestly, I feel like it's a great thing that this is, like, resurfacing and stuff like that. Especially the fact that we are talking about a movie that is getting closer and closer to becoming 100 years old. It even mentioned that the release date was September 23rd, 1926. So seeing this movie again, like, it may not be the first, but it is definitely the oldest of them all. So it is still highly important that it still resurfaces, and especially if it's still going to inspire people, because this is one of the very few movies that it's like no one has ever seen. Like you won't see an animated film like this in a long time. So honestly, this is definitely worth checking out, and it's definitely worth owning.
And it's important too because art can be easily duplicated, but you can't duplicate the original. That's the important thing.
You mean art can be imitated but never duplicated?
That too.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. So
yeah, the original remains on the shelf for all eternity.
Yeah, so I think this is honestly pretty exciting. So I think I'm definitely going to order it. Hopefully it will come in Canada as well. So
Yeah, I'm a little curious. I'm a little curious too, especially the choice of the shorts, because knowing the Dr. Dolittle stories and how offensive they were back then, I'm a little curious to see how they're going to do Cannibal Land.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And I mean, like, it is all silhouette, so you never know how they're going to go. And even, like, I will admit, even when you see, like, in The Adventures of Prince Achmed, there are some characters that can be kind of questionable in terms of their portrayal. So you got to keep that in mind. And especially, also on top of that, with Dr. Dolittle, these animated shorts, they're made in 1923.
Yeah, I mean, even in the 60s when they were doing the Rex Harrison musical, they tried to lighten up as much of the stuff as they could.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I just want to say that, I think, Morgan, I will say, if you are going to expect a lack of political correctness, you definitely should, because, like I said before, 5 years later, there is an animated short called The Death-Fying Chinaman.
I've seen worse. There's been Doctor Who serials that had some pretty questionable material there. You see what they did to you, Klieg? They made you a slave.
Well, that's back in the 60s. Back in the 60s.
Well, even that was the most famous one. That was like Tomb of the Cybermen. No, in the mid 70s, we have one where Tom Baker, Sherlock Holmes. I think it's the Talons of Wing Chiang, and they have a British actor and like yellow makeup and stuff with Fu Manchu like whiskers. I'm not kidding.
Oh God, they pulled a Mickey Rooney on the thing.
They did. Well, it's not like the Coke glasses kind of stereotype. Okay. It's more of the well, again, going back to earlier, they had in Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, they had Mick Jagger playing a Chinese emperor in the Nightingale episode.
Oh God. Really?
And he's a good actor, but at the same time, it's like it's Mick Jagger as a Chinese emperor.
Really puts in a whole new meaning of moves like Jagger.
It's like it's of the time. I'm not gonna hold a grip on
Yeah,
it. I
that
mean,
is true.
Gone with the Wind, very famous movie, made of the time. They had to put in the Confederate state and stuff like that. It's in there because it's part of the history. It is what it is. You know,
Yeah,
I can't argue there.
yeah, that is definitely true. But still, it is still very fascinating, and especially the fact that this is a Blu-ray, not only to highlight the movie, but also to highlight the works of Lot Reiniger, and that is something that I really do admire. Like, that's honestly one thing that I kind of expected if this was released by Criterion, in a sense, that they would
Oh,
really honor the artist that actually made it more so than just talk about the movie.
yeah, and even then, Criterion, they're very, very selective with their stuff, which is a bit troublesome, but it's weird because, like, oh, we're not doing animated stuff. Well, you just had The Breakfast Club and The Princess Bride recently. Come on.
That
And I'm
that
not
is a
kidding.
very good point.
And I'm not kidding. They did have The Princess Bride out this month.
Yeah, that is true. That's definitely true. But still, like, at least it is a good thing that we are getting this Blu-ray. And if you guys are interested, the Blu-ray itself is going to be coming out on November 13th. But like Morgan pointed out, you can actually go and pre-order it on Amazon right now. So with that said, I would like to know into the chat wall, what do you guys think about the Blu-ray announcement of The Adventures of Prince Achmed? Are you guys excited for it? Are you thinking about getting it yourself? And like, have you guys seen the movie, and what did you think of it? I want to know what you guys think about all this.
So far, they're thinking this is not a PG-rated podcast.
Yeah, like apparently there seems to be a lot of shock value over the fact that I said eat a penis for some reason.
Matt said the P word. Oh my God! Dear Internet and Mothers of America.
swear. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Brother. Well, then again, my science teacher called a student a needle dick, and he got in trouble for it.
A needle dick.
Well, the teacher also did gym class and stuff, and I think he did it because the kid was annoying or something. And the day after, they decided to put the teacher on suspension. Next thing, I'm walking in the hallway. There's like all these students with little like graphic design T-shirts of the guy's face, and it says "Free Dupree." That was the teacher's name, Mr. Dupree. He was like my high school. He's a really good guy, by the way. But it was just so amazing. Just suspension. No, we shall save him.
Oh wow, that is amazing.
That's my high school experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And it does look like like apparently people can't they can't avoid the shock value, but I do see a few actually do want to have the Blu-ray. A lot of people are interested. So, that's actually pretty good. So, with that said, though, it is now time that we shall go into the grand finale. And this is the big moment for us because one thing I would like to emphasize that the one thing that me and Morgan, we really do connect the most is actually regarding the works of Jim Henson. We're both major Muppet fans, and we both adore the works of Jim Henson, including Sesame Street, the Dark Crystal. I was about to say the Black Cauldron. I don't know why.
Like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I'm sure he must have done something that starts with the black or whatever as a special or anything like that. But
who knows? Maybe he's the reason they got John Hurt to be in that movie.
Yeah, but we really do admire the works of Jim Henson. But with this week, however, there was a pivotal moment that is major news for us. Like, it's not necessarily about Jim Henson, but it is definitely a big life-changing moment, especially for Sesame Street. And before I begin, Morgan, before I continue, I just want to start off by asking, is it pronounced Spiny or Spinney?
Spinney. It's pronounced Spinney.
Okay, thank you. So yes, the big moment, guys. Caroll Spinney has officially retired. Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, Caroll Spinney is actually a legendary puppeteer who has actually worked on Sesame Street literally since the very beginning of the show. Ever since episode 1 in 1969, Caroll Spinney would go and play as Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, and it has never changed since. And the big thing is that I remember you, Morgan, you actually were the first to mention me about this.
Yeah.
And you shared me the article on Tough Pigs, where it actually stated that Caroll Spinney has officially retired. Now, the big thing about Caroll Spinney is that, yeah, he is pretty old right now. He is about, what, 84?
Yeah,
And,
he's like in his 80s.
yeah, he's in his 80s. And, like, a big part of why he is retiring is that, well, for a while, he was incapable of actually doing the challenges that would require puppeteering characters such as Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. And he would hand it over to a couple of other Muppeteers, and like he would then only provide the voices. And if for those of you who are wondering what's going to happen in the future of both Caroll Spinney and Sesame Street, I would like to read in my source in Tough Pigs as it states. According to the New York Times, Caroll will officially hand over his signature characters to Matt Vogel and Eric Jacobson, who have been keeping Big Bird and Oscar warm since it became too difficult for Caroll to keep up with the challenges of performing. Although he will be retiring from performing, Caroll plans to remain a part of the Sesame Street family in more of an ambassador role. And just to clarify, Matt Vogel will be the one who will take over as Big Bird, and Eric Jacobson will be playing as Oscar the Grouch. And yes, by the way, Matt Vogel is also the same guy who is the new Kermit the Frog. Which, by the way, Morgan, just want to know, like, what are your thoughts of Matt Vogel as Kermit? I don't know if I have asked you personally or if you've mentioned this before, but I would like to know your thoughts on that.
No, I never knew Matt Vogel took over Kermit. I know Steve Whitmire was canned from the role.
Mm-hmm.
I know that much. Pretty big shakeup.
Oh yeah,
I didn't
absolutely.
know
Matt. That was like big news right there.
That was huge. That was huge for weeks. I was like, what? Why? Oh, because of this and this. And, oh no. And then months later, it happens with James Gunn. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of Matt Vogel taking over the role, I'm trying to recall if I've seen any clips of him performing as Kermit, maybe one or two, and I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not really too on the
thing
fence.
is that so far the big things that Matt Vogel has done as Kermit is just the live shows, like in the O2 and the Hollywood Bowl, and also like the most public thing would be the just the recent Muppet Thoughts of the Week.
I'm fine with that. I think he does a very decent job capturing the character. I mean, it's Jim's character. You're not gonna. It is what it is. He had that character for a long time up until his final years, so I think trying to mimic Jim's ability, it's not possible. But you know, there can be more than one Batman, so why not? There can be more than one Kermit, so I'm fine with that.
Exactly.
As long as it's their interpretation of the character and it matches to what the original variation was intended to be, which is this character that's trapped in so much insanity, but he knows how to go through the storm. He knows how to control the chaos. So, and I've seen Matt Vogel perform other characters too, and I'm fine with that. I loved him as Uncle Deadly. I thought he was great because I love Uncle Deadly.
Oh yeah, of course.
And Eric Jacobson, I think he's a good performer too. He's done Grover, he's done Bird, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so I'm sure. So basically, you could trust Matt to be Big Bird and Eric as Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's start off first off here. Yeah, it's sad that Carol's, stepping down, but he's been doing this for 50 years.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's never stopped, it's commitment. That's just pure commitment. And it's rare for someone to have that title for so long. And for him to step back and say, yeah, I think it's time for me to end the journey here while I have the chance. It's sad, but at the same time, for him to be such a nice-hearted guy, a kind-hearted guy, very nice, and done so much in his lifetime, there's nowhere else that he can go. And considering his physical age, I don't want to wake up next morning and see like, oh, Caroll Spinney claps it. No, I don't want that to happen. I never want something like that to happen. That'd be horrible. It's like what happened to Dick Shawn with he voiced he voiced Snow Miser in The Year Without a Santa Claus. As the story goes, he was doing stand-up and he literally collapsed on stage.
Oh damn! Really?
It's a horrible story. He was doing a stand-up routine on politicians, like, oh, they might as well just drop dead at some point, and that's what he literally did. and there were audience members making cat calls because they thought it was part of a joke. And then someone jumped on stage, checked his pulse, and said, "Is there a doctor in the house?" I don't want that to happen. I don't.
Yeah, of course.
So for him to say, this is the end of the journey. I want to do other things. All the power to him. I'm fine with that. I
Yeah,
really am.
and also, the one thing I want to emphasize is that one thing I'm really happy about regarding Caroll Spinney retiring and stepping down, and that is that I feel like we are going through a very smooth transition. This is not like the controversy with Steve Whitmire where he's suddenly fired and now we have to have a new change and stuff like that. This is like a transition that's been going on for years because it stated, I think it stated in my New York Times article that it took it was in 2015, I believe, where he no longer performed as Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, and he was only doing the voiceover work, and
Mm.
Matt Vogel and Eric Jacobson were doing the puppeteering work for Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. And now what's going to happen is just that he's now Caroll Spinney is going to step aside, and now they are going to do the voices. So for the most part, it's just going to be a voiceover change, but for most of the time, like, it's just a little transition where we still
Mm.
feel like Big Bird is Big Bird and Oscar is still Oscar, but now we're like, there's gonna be a bit of a voice change that could take some time to get used to, but other than that, like, it is it is still a smooth and well placed transition.
And the other thing, keep in mind too, that's not the first time this has happened. Frank Oz, for example, he didn't perform the characters, but he voiced like Miss Piggy and Cookie Monster a couple of times. He wasn't there because he was busy doing like film projects and stuff like that. Um, and I think it was like after a little ways after Muppets from Space, they changed performers and such, and he went and did his things because he felt it just he wanted to do different things. This is something that's not uncommon, to say the least.
Yeah, no, that is definitely true. I mean, like, performers definitely do change, especially especially like in Jim Henson projects that have been on for like literally decades, like
Oh
Sesame
yeah.
Street and the Muppets. Like, eventually you will see actors that will change. And I think it did mention here about when is it going to be the last time we are going to see him as a performer. It's, yeah, right here in the New York Times. It states the impending 50th anniversary of Sesame Street, for which his final voice recording will be used when it is celebrated on the show. The episode will run next year on HBO and in 2020 on PBS. Seems like a good moment to take a bow, which it really does make sense. Like a perfect opportunity to round things out at like working on the project for like 50 years. So I
Yeah.
think like on that front, I think it really does make a lot of sense. And also, there is another thing that I would like to mention, and this is highlighted on the New York Times article, is that I never knew he was a pretty good artist. Like, you see here,
He was.
you see like little drawings of Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch that Spiny has done, and then there's this
Spinny.
Spinny fudge. Now, did I say Spiny?
Yep.
Ah, fudge. I wanted to avoid that, but hold on. If we go down, there's this one artwork that Spinny that Caroll. I'll say Caroll. It'll be much easier for me. There's
What a
this
boy,
one
Carol.
artwork that Caroll has done, and it's amazing. Hold on. It's right at the end. You see right here. It's this. It's called "In My Dreams I Can Fly," and it's a beautiful painting of like this countryside in the middle of America, and you see Big Bird that's just flying right there. It's it's
Yeah.
honestly really beautiful. So yeah, Caroll Spinney is definitely a talented artist, not just as a puppeteer, but also as a painter and a drawer and all that stuff.
He also did like design work too for the documentary that was
Yes,
about
the
him. I Am Big Bird.
Yes, the documentary as well. I was about to ask, like, since I'm sure you have seen the documentary itself. Since, funny enough, that was actually released just before he stepped down from performing as Big Bird and Oscar. So, what did you think of the documentary?
I thought it was really good. I think of all the Muppet performing documentaries I've seen, I know there's one they did recently which I've yet to see. It's like Muppet Performers Talk or something like
Oh,
that.
I've
It has
seen
like
that one actually. I've seen that one. It was honestly very interesting. It's more
Mm.
like it's not necessarily like a feature length documentary. It does feel like something that would be more suited as like a bonus feature, but it definitely is really interesting to see all the actors talk about the Muppets and Jim Henson and stuff.
No, it was interesting because there's so much information I did not know at the time what Spinney was doing, the adventures he had. I know there was that special where the character went to China. Yeah, yeah, it was China, and I didn't know about that whole thing with the actress, how they're trying to keep in contact and stuff like that, and the problems. Um, so there was some stuff I thought that was actually kind of interesting. But what I thought was more entertaining was the reaction from my grandparents, and I was wondering if this would come up because they were actually good friends with Caroll Spinney in high school, believe it or not.
Yeah, I was wondering if you want to bring that, if you would actually mention this in the podcast, because
Well,
you
this is
told me about it and it really is a
hmm.
fascinating story.
Oh yeah, this is a good little segue. I don't use this as an icebreaker or anything. It's like they experienced it. They were with him there. It's not my story. It's theirs. Then again, if I had the chance, I would have ransacked my grandfather up here. Um, I don't know a whole lot, but this is what I do know. They went to a high school within the Athol Littleton area, and they were good friends. They did things on the side here and there. In the winter, they did sledding and tobogganing. They were good pals, and the important thing of that is to know that they knew a kind-hearted, caring character was there from the start of it all. He was who he was, and the fact that they, met up with him a couple of times and stuff, that's fun. That's a really interesting trivia tidbit to know. Hell, even when they had like a high school reunion, I think in like maybe the mid '90s or some point, Carol was there. There were my grandparents, walk around and stuff, and there was Carol walking around. He had that little he couldn't get out of the Big Bird voice, hi there. And then my grandfather later told me about that, and that detail kind of went a little over my head at one point, but then later it's like, wow, they knew Caroll Spinney, the guy who performed Big Bird. That's amazing. Um, but it's true. My grandparents were there with him when he was in high school and stuff, and there's no bad stories or anything like that. They knew he was a really good, kind-hearted, caring guy from the start of it all. So to have a copy of this documentary and show it to them, the reaction was actually kind of interesting because, my grandmother's like, "Oh, this is such a." My grandfather in the end was different. He's like, "What? How can they leave this out? How can they skip over this? How can they do this? How can they leave that out?" It's like, well, there's only certain limits what they can put into a documentary. I don't care. They left this out. They left that detail out. um, but no, even then too, there was like stuff in the documentary that he knew that he went into more detail about that was kind of interesting. Before Sesame Street, Carol was part of like a little local show called Bozo the Clown Circus or something like that, and he performed a character called Mr. Lion, where he would dress up as a lion, and what he would do. This was before Sesame Street Kids, and they had actual kids in the audience, and they weren't paid. Um, no, that's what they do. They would invite kids into the stage show and everything, and sit them down. Um, and what he would do is he would take a kid's name and he would morph it into an animal. That is how good of an artist Caroll Spinney was. He could take Tom and turn into a lion. He could take Susan and turn into an elephant or something like that. It's just a cool little trivia bit to know that they knew this person. Not as close acquaintances to the point they have his phone number or address. Definitely not. But just to know that factor is really cool growing up. Because, hell, I know my uncle used to work for Mojo Records, and he helped out with bands like Real Big Fish and Cherry Poppin' Daddies. So to know that information is kind of neat. But it's like to share these stories. I wasn't there to experience it. They were. I'm just there to say, oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, that happened. It's kind of cool. But at the same time, just to know that they were there and knew who this person was is actually very fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely is. So I think with all that said, I don't know if you have fully expressed your thoughts on this, but how do you feel now that Caroll Spinney is officially stepping down as Big Bird and Oscar de Grout? Like, well, how do you feel about his retirement?
It's kind of sad because when I was a teenager, back in 2003, there was a book that Carol wrote, which I recommend hunting down. It's called The Wisdom of Big Bird, and I can't remember the full title. It's The Wisdom of Big Bird and the Terribleness of Oscar the Grouch. have to step back a second. He wrote this book, and he was doing like a little mini book tour at one point. Um, and at one of the places he was going to was right around in my local area. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, here it is: The Wisdom of Big Bird and the Dark Genius of Oscar the Grouch: Life Lessons from A Life in Feathers. Yeah, he was doing this little book tour, and one of the places he was stopping at was a bookstore, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. It's called Willow Books, but it was in the Air area, Ayer, just so you know. So I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. But no, he was doing a little book tour. My grandfather, he would have loved me to be there. He really would have, just to meet the guy and know all those details. I think it might have been a school night, which is what held me back. And that and also the time and the distance to travel, because it's half an hour from where I am, including 10 minutes time for traffic and stuff. But it would have been amazing. And let me tell you, you can tell you have a good puppeteer when you're looking at the character and not the performer behind him. So jump to me years later with the imagination of YouTube, and there's actual footage of that book signing online. And he performed Oscar, and all the time I wasn't looking at him, I was looking at Oscar. Just the way it's so alive, so articulate.
Mhm.
And every time I tried to look up and see Carol's, mouth movement and stuff, I'm slowly panning down going, how is this character alive right in front of me? That's incredible. Um, he had a great legacy. He did all this stuff. Yeah, it's terrible that he's stepping down, but at the same time, where else can he go? What else can he do? The closest I can think of was that resurgence after the SNL appearance, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that is
Because there was a
true.
point where like we're gonna take it. No, don't take down PBS. And then they had Big Bird actually appear on there, which is kind of nice and heartwarming. And I think from there, they said, "Oh man, he's back in the public eye." So they did more stories of him and stuff like that. And a little bit of this is in the documentary. It's kind of neat. Um, but in this case, it's really more of a question of there's really nothing else you can do or anywhere else you can go. Um, and considering age has a big benefactor on it. I'm okay with it, but at the same time, I do wish him the best because there are some performers that have performed characters and they stop for with good legit reasons.
Hmm.
Jerry Nelson, for example, he was one of the first performers for Mr. Snuffleupagus, and for a while he had that role. I think for like maybe the first 3 seasons or so, and then the the technical aspects of the character were so hard on his back, they passed it down to Martin P. Robinson, who did Telly Monster and
Yeah.
some of the others. Um, but then there's a scary thought that comes to play. For a while, it was Jerry Nelson and Caroll Spinney, the people that were there from the start, that were on the show. And now with the both of them gone, second to that is Martin P. Robinson, and there's all these new people. The adults are not there because of the HBO shift over and budget reasons and such. So you have like this whole new generation taking over the show in a sense. It's like, is it going to get better? Is it going to be as it is? I've seen sketches of the show. I mean, Sesame Street in this general where they do stuff with Cookie Monster stuff, and it's different. Yes, it's not like the original, but that's fine. You're doing something for the new generation. You're doing something different based on the pop culture, the stuff they're watching at the time. And that's something that the show has always done. Hell, there's a Monster Piece Theater parody where they did NYPD Blue because that was popular at the time. Um,
Yeah.
but just knowing that Caroll Spinney was there from the start, and he was there just all the way because there were points where he almost quit. And I'm not going to say why because they're in the documentary, and it's a great documentary to look up afterwards. It's called I Am Big Bird, the Caroll Spinney documentary story. Just knowing he had this life, this legacy, and did these amazing things, and here he is just saying, "This is the end of the road. I'll be fine." Knowing that he has many stories to tell, and they were told, and they were experienced. It's sad, yeah, but I don't think there's anyone else out there like him. Like you can have maybe an imitator of Big Bird, but there's only one Carroll, and that's him.
Hmm.
So to know he had this dedication is more amazing than him stepping down because he had that will, he had that power, and I just hope whatever he does next in his time, I wish the best for him. I really do.
Yeah, and even for me, I would say that this is kind of like a bittersweet kind of ending, but more on the sweet side, because you gotta keep in mind, it could have been worse. Like, with the reports that they are
Oh,
coming out, at least he's not dead.
no.
There is
No,
that.
no.
Like,
God
the
forbid.
most it is just that he is retiring. And yeah, there are a lot of sad moments, especially like when you would go on social media and they would show actually pictures of Caroll Spinney's final performance working on Sesame Street and stuff like that. And yeah, it will catch you right in the feels and stuff like that. Go on.
And I just want to say, and I don't want to make this too bitter, but there were moments during his time where it almost got that bad. Um, I'm not going to say too much because they go into great detail in the documentary, and I don't want to scare people. But there was a moment where they almost got Big Bird in space.
Like literally in space?
Yeah, they were going to have this NASA project, and it was going to be directed to the youth, and they couldn't do it because of the problems with the puppet. So they had to scrap that idea and said they had like certain professors and teachers. And I bring that up because, well, I'm just gonna send this here on Skype, the name of the spaceship, because I hope you know about this.
Hold on a sec. Let me just oops.
Oh,
Challenger.
someone knows it.
Did someone? Oh, the Challenger. Oh, is
Yep.
that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Oh. I think that's all I could say about it. It's just.
That's all I can say.
Oh.
That's all I
Yeah.
can say. But no, going back to the good things.
Yeah, going back to what I was saying is that at least he's not dead. It could have been worse. At least he's not dead. At least he's not injured or anything like that. He is gradually stepping down. And I mean, yeah, like, I think it is amazing that he is leaving off like 50 years of such an amazing legacy playing two of the most beloved puppet characters in television history with Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. And even when looking into the technical aspect of doing Big Bird and Oscar like every freaking day is absolutely amazing. And especially coming from a guy like Caroll Spinney, and even after looking at the documentary, it really does bring in an admiration to the guy that, yeah, like you said it best, Morgan, that there isn't going to be anyone else like Caroll Spinney out there. Like, sure,
No.
I'm sure Matt Vogel and Jacobson, they will do a good job stepping into his shoes to play as Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, but like, you can't really recreate who that guy is. You can't recreate Caroll Spinney and his charm. So yeah, there is going to be a bit of that sad moment, but at least like he is leaving Sesame Street on a high note, and I think that is definitely going to be a beautiful thing and
Oh yeah.
something to really write off very well in Sesame Street's history. So I think overall, like, it really did, and like this whole story really did end off for the best.
And like I said, I'm optimistic that Matt Vogel and Eric Jacobson will do these characters fine. I think I might have heard their voices in the Stranger Things parody, but I'm not too sure. I might have to watch that again. But just the idea of like different performers taking over old characters, that's something completely new. That's
Mm-hmm.
nothing completely new. As long as they have an idea of who the character is and who they are, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's 100% fine. I'm not going to complain like, why is his voice different? No, if the personality's there, so be it. I mean, the new Mystery Science Theater 3000, for example, they have different puppeteers, different actors doing Tom Servo and Crow and Gypsy, and even though they poke little jabs at it, it's like, that's fine. It's a new season, new show, new host. It's meant for a new generation, new era. I'm all for it. As long as the spirit of the character is there,
Mm-hmm.
we'll still have Big Bird no matter what.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
and the feature film Follow That Bird, which is amazing.
Oh my god, that is definitely true. Yeah, yeah, we definitely have followed
Mm.
that bird. And I guess you could say we also got Elmo in Grouchland.
Uh,
I'm trying to think of an Oscar the Grouch thing.
well,
So
there's not a lot of Oscar in that movie. You'll be disappointed.
okay, yeah, So, with that said, though, I would like to go into the chat wall right over here. What do you guys think about the whole news about Caroll Spinney retiring? What do you think about his legacy? What do you think about the guy? And what do you think about Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch? I would like to know, what do you guys think? If you have any comments or anything to say about his retirement. Let's see. It is really sad that he is no longer Big Bird, but I guess not everyone can do the same act forever. At least Matt Vogel can continue his legacy. It's better for him to do so. I mean, if he could have done this until he dies, as you said, that would have been terrible. Thank you, Spinney, to be a part of my childhood. And also, on a lighter note, did you guys hear that Jonathan Crystal, the co-creator of Portlandia, is directing a Sesame Street movie? This is official. Yes, I'm sure we do know.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Spinney actually didn't record any new material for season 48. That was actually the first clue that Caroll Spinney was retiring. Okay, that is interesting. Do we have anything else that people would like to say? I wish him good luck for his retirement. All right, that's nice. And I think with that... Oh, wait a minute.
Here's an interesting question. What is your most favorite and least favorite Muppet movies, and have you seen Big Bird's movie and Elmo and Grouchland movie?
For me, well, holy crap. It's been a while, but I would say, well, like, a good favorite up there would be Muppets Christmas Carol for now. Least favorite, well, Muppets in Space, I mean.
For me, it's the Muppet movie, because there's so much I'm attached to with that film.
Oh, yeah.
Least favorite, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Muppets from Space, that was just...
Yeah, I think that's the one that's, like, pretty unanimous with everyone. It's just like, yeah, Muppets in Space.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see. Someone wants to ask you, Morgan, before ending the podcast, have you read my comment about my idea for a Sonic movie for Warner Brothers before Paramount beat me to it? My stream lagged in early.
I don't know if I should... Should I question the grammar in that question? Again, and I'm not trying to fault the writer, but let's see. Have you read my comment about my idea for a Sonic movie for Warner Brothers before Paramount beat me to it? I'll be brief. There have been moments in my time when I was a kid, and even now where I had an idea for a movie, and someone else would beat me to the punch. And a good example was, this is silly, when I was like 8 or 9, I wanted to remake the entire Planet of the Apes franchise, but it was so... I'm glad somebody else did it because my idea was so silly. It was pretty much this scientific experiment where the apes evolve from molds of Jell-O. This was me back then.
Jell-O.
Egotistical me.
Jell-O monkeys!
Exactly. It was. I'm so glad that didn't happen. That's way too silly. So
yeah, for now we have the simian flu.
Yeah, which I'm better with. But no, people have a different idea of what they want from this kind of movie, that kind of movie, and if you have the ambition, if you have the will to make your vision, do it. Really do it. Don't dream it. Be it.
Yeah.
At the most.
Yeah, we seem to have another comment about Caroll Spinney, just going back into this. He will be remembered as one of the best parts of my childhood, and after 50 years of doing something he really enjoyed. Let him spend the rest of his years as he sees fit. I can see... hold on. I can just see the new guys coming over to be on his place at night and ask him, what do we do? Okay. But yeah, I think... I will say, with all that said, though, I think this could round out this episode. I think we did a pretty good one, I must say. So I just go on.
Wait, there's a question here. Matt, didn't you say in Cinema Royale that you hated Muppet Letters to Santa?
That's a special. We're talking about movies.
Yeah, movies.
But still, that's still like one of the worst things the Muppets have ever done. So
yeah.
But yeah, with that said, I will say that's pretty much it with this episode. So I just want to say, Morgan, thank you so much for coming over. This has definitely been a blast. Like, holy crap, I missed this so much. Here.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me move over because the lighting's weird now. That's a little better.
Okay, yeah.
There we go. That's better.
Thank you so much, Morgan. So I just want to ask. I'm sure a lot of people watching this, they could be really interested in hearing more about you in general. So where can people follow you online?
Well, for starters, for those who think I haven't done videos in a long time, I have a YouTube channel, thank you. I've been doing a lot, and also Vimeo as well. I've been doing a lot of stuff recently. Um, I've been doing a couple of podcast plays. There's one that was done over the summer. There's two planned, one for November, which is a parody on summer blockbuster films. There's one set for December, which is our Christmas episode. There's others planned for the future. It's the Drive-In Mutants Radio Theater. You can listen in at manicexpression.com or at vimeo.com/vaulting. You can follow me on Twitter at MovieBuffBell90. I do have a Facebook, but I'm keeping that a little bit private for a variety of reasons. Or you can just see me float around on the Mr. Code and Friends fan page, or even AniMat's fan page, for example. I'm not too hard to spot. Just look at the links and the way I talk. But no, you can find me there for updates and such, and if something comes up, I'll let you know. There is some vaulting planned in the future. Can't say how, can't say when, because December marks the 10th anniversary.
Interesting.
So there are some episodes planned in the future. It's just a matter of time and getting things out. Some stuff's happened in life, and I'm trying to surf through and do what I can. But I'm still here. I still exist. That's the important thing.
Yeah, alright, that's definitely great. So, with all that said and done, though, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys for having a lot of fun in this episode. So, tune in next week, and we will have more crazy adventures going on in this podcast right over here with AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So, I just would like to say thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!
If I had a catchphrase, it wouldn't be on a t-shirt.